You often hear historians talking about how Lincoln was our greatest president ever, but many people don't stop to actually consider why. You hear historians argue, do the times make the man or do the man make the times? In Lincoln's case, he really was an exceptional president. He was magnificent on so many levels. He managed a very argumentative and contentious cabinet and managed to get the Emancipation Proclamation issued, managed to wage a war that was always in question, managed to work with a Congress that was continually against him. And so he had political skills that just were almost unparalleled in the history of the United States. The fact that we managed to get those political skills in the presidency at a time when this country needed it the most is next to a miracle.
On February 12th of 1809, Nancy Hanks Lincoln gave birth to the future 16th President of the United States in a log cabin near present-day Hodgensville, Kentucky. She named him after his grandfather, Abraham Lincoln. Young Abraham grew up in a low-income agricultural family. His parents had no formal education. His father, Thomas Lincoln, kept young Abraham busy with farm work, hindering Abraham's formal education. But this did not stop Abraham from educating himself. When Abraham was 9, his mother, Nancy Hanks Lincoln, died from milk sickness in southern Indiana, where the family had moved in December of 1816. Young Abraham and his father built a wooden casket for his mother. Later, Thomas Lincoln went back to Kentucky and married Sarah Bush Johnson, a widow whom he had known previously. He brought his new wife and her 3 children back to Indiana. In time, Abraham and his stepmother bonded. Sarah would later admit she preferred Abraham over her own biological children. Abraham greatly appreciated the positive impact she had had on the formative years of his life.
He was the best boy I ever saw. He never told me a lie in his life and never dodged responsibility. Sarah Bush Johnson.
All that I am, or hope to be, I owe to my angel mother, Abraham Lincoln.
So he had lived through tremendous tragedies in his life, and he still had the leadership to come on through that and to maintain our country and to lead us through the Civil War period.
Abraham's main source of education were books. Since he was tied to the farm with his father, he only amounted less than a year's worth of formal education. Abraham would read any book he could get his hands on, and read whenever he had the chance.
He'd put a book inside his shirt and fill his paying pockets with corn dodgers and go off to plow or help. When noon came, he'd sit down under a tree and read and eat. Aunt Sarah's never let the children pester him. She always said Abe was going to be a great man someday, and she wasn't going to have him hindered. Dennis Hank.
By the age of 18, Abraham was standing 6 feet 4 inches tall and could handle an axe with ease and precision. One neighbor recalled, he could sink an axe deeper into wood than any man I ever saw. In 1831, after the Lincoln family had moved to Coles County, Illinois, Abraham had come of age and decided to embark on his own. In late July, Abraham arrived at New Salem, Illinois, where he would become a store clerk, a map maker, a postmaster, a lawyer, and a soldier. This is also where he would begin to strengthen his leadership and intellect. In New Salem, he continued to enrich himself with knowledge, sinking himself into grammar, law, and mathematic books. One morning he sat barefoot on a woodpile with the law book. "What are you reading?" asked Squire Goodbay. "I ain't reading, I'm studying." "Studying what?" "Law. Good God Almighty." As a store clerk, Abraham earned the title Honest Abe for his tremendous honesty. He once walked 6 miles to pay back a few cents a woman had overpaid for her dry goods, when he found out he had used the wrong weight. In March of 1832, Abraham decided to step into politics as a candidate for the legislature of the state of Illinois. This endeavor was halted though when the Black Hawk War broke out in April. Abraham immediately signed up for military service. He rode a horse 9 miles to Richland Creek where he joined a group of friends he had met in New Salem. Almost the entire group voted Lincoln as the captain of their company for the war. Years later, Abraham would write that he was surprised with the outcome of this election, and that not since had any success in life which gave him so much satisfaction. From his experience in the Black Hawk War, Abraham understood the American volunteer soldier. he understood why they endured the hardships of war. In April 19th of 1834, Abraham ran again as a candidate for the state legislature of Illinois and joined the Whig Party along with John Stuart, who deepened Abraham's interest to study law. In August 4th, Abraham had won the election for the state legislature. Later in 1836, he received his license to practice law as well. In March 3rd of 1837, Abraham and Dan Stone, an abolitionist, recorded a protest claiming the institution of slavery is founded on both injustice and bad policy. In this stage of his career, Abraham showed his disposition on the slavery issue. In April of the same year, Abraham arrived in Springfield, Illinois to become a law partner with Stuart. 2 years later, Abraham met a 21-year-old Mary Todd, a well-educated and beautiful young lady who was in search of a good man, a man of mind. They were soon engaged to be married, but the couple had struggles and misunderstandings. The engagement was off and Lincoln was left a broken man. In a letter he wrote to John Stuart, he expressed his feelings.
I am now the most miserable man living. If what I feel were equally distributed to the whole human family, there would not be one cheerful face on earth. Abraham Lincoln.
Joshua Speed, a store clerk who gave Abraham a place to stay while in Springfield, counseled Abraham through this depressive period. Josh and Abraham would become long-life friends. In November 4th of 1842, Mary and Abraham decided to get married, and 9 months later, Robert Todd Lincoln was born. In 1847, Lincoln lost a case representing Robert Matson, a slaveholder. Robert was suing for slaves that were taken away from him because he brought them onto free soil. Lincoln made little effort to make his argument. He believed the slaves were entitled to freedom since they were in free soil. Lincoln received no pay from Matson after the case, but had no regrets because, as a lawyer, he had upheld the cause of the strong against the weak. Lincoln's leadership resonates to this event, where he did not care for the pay, but did care for the cause. The next year, while the United States was in the midst of the Mexican-American War, Lincoln wrote and presented the spot resolution asking President James Polk exactly where the first blood of our citizen was so shed. Although this was dismissed by Polk, it implied question to the goals behind the war. Was the war instigated by Polk to gain slave territory and thereby giving the slave-holding states majority power in government? Lincoln, along with the Whig Party, declared the war as unnecessary and unconstitutionally commenced by the president. Lincoln later discovered that President Polk did not have intentions of pursuing the war effort, but was pressured to do so because of the circumstances he had faced. Lincoln therefore voted to support and give aid to soldiers in the field as a way to compensate for the blame he had placed on Polk and the administration. On February 2, 1848, the Mexican-American War was ended with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, giving the U.S. claims to California and New Mexico. In the upcoming 1848 election, Lincoln advocated for Zachary Taylor, a war hero of the Mexican-American War, for president under the Whig Party. Even though Zachary was a slaveholder, Lincoln knew Zachary would do more to prevent it from spreading. It was the optimal choice for the Whig Party under the new circumstances they faced with the newly acquired land.
Lincoln was, to me, the legacy he has. So Lincoln's leadership, sometimes though, was amazing. President may not do he would spend hours down his working on the wow, what's my legacy really be? War effort, the section he had to address, we always Lincoln did not know winding up the nation would pursue with malice Confederate Army. I think the grand war surrender of the legacy he had for the job, even though he's probably been at the time, we had widows, terrible. He said, but he said, Lincoln, even though Grant tried, he wanted to make sure that he defeated the Confederate Army. Lincoln had the authority way down. Lincoln was in the war down. Finally, he was he had no sign of anything tragedy. He said, he had the president had legislation that was passed, and a lot of times a lesser man or even veterans died as strong as Lincoln was. Lincoln was just his own cabinet time he would remain so prominent. He had back to get up to the probably when he very down as this was his son Edward died. Lincoln actually was his entire cabinet. His son really died. One of his former troops, the leadership captured as a time like that.
Lincoln had a lot of very
Lincoln was with an equal was made fun of. He was one who style would have been reflected.
Had a very good sense of
We
humor.
don't think are that
You couldn't rattle him. He very rarely got mad. But when he did get mad, he
people
didn't
would
want to
really
be in the room.
ridicule him and make cartoons about him.
And
But,
Lincoln was a
he
very
was a man who
doting
showed
father
tremendous
on his
leadership.
sons. He really
When
loved his family
the chips
and
were
managed
down,
to
he
work and
really
maintain
stepped
those
up,
ties as much as he
and
possibly
helped
could during a
preserve our
time
country.
when he held a job that was taking 18 hours a day. So he was a very interesting man, completely self-taught, had almost no formal schooling whatsoever.